Well, every day there's always a fire at work, and it's not the end of the world. And when people are in it, you could tell they're sweating. And I'm like, hey, how's it going? And they're like, I'm really nervous. I go, well, you know what? You're not alone. What can I do to help? Sit down, tell me. And I just let people tell me how they feel, what they think they've done. And it's just listening, right? And making them feel like they're not alone.
Welcome to Apostolicum Actus Citatem, an interview series on effective apostolic activity for the 21st century. My name is Christopher Pereira. I'm the CEO of Tepeyac Leadership.
And I'm Andreas Whitmer, Director of the Sioka Center for Principal Entrepreneurship.
And today we are pleased to be interviewing Mia Costa, an executive with a marketing background, and we'd like to learn about her and welcome her now to Apostolicum Actus Citatem. Welcome, Mia.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being with us. We are thrilled to have you with us and learn a little bit. I don't think we've ever had a guest so far that is in your field of expertise. So we'd love to hear about how do you advance the mission of the church as a professional in marketing. Could you tell us a little bit about your background and what do you do right now?
Sure. I have grown up in the world of tech startups, anything related to technology, hardware and software. So very entrepreneurial background in terms of like everyone's very creative. You were thinking of ideas that come out of nothing to help solve problems. But at the same time, there's a lot of pressure to satisfy investors, board of directors, and hit a lot of sales goals. So it's a very pressure-filled business. I love it. It's like the wild, wild west. You could create the world that you want to create, but it also tends to be very male dominated. There's a lot of, what's the word? There's a lot of people tend to give up a lot of things to make things happen. There's things that could be questionable. And so it's definitely challenged my faith in humanity and my faith in God. And thank goodness it's been very stable, but there are times where it's tempting and you don't want to be tempted and you have to just take the high road. So, but that's what I've been doing. I've been working with a lot of startups. I've also been a consultant for startups. People who only have one or two ideas, $1 or $2 million. I know that sounds like a lot of money, but also in business, it runs out very quickly. And it's like how to make things happen in a scrappy way and how to call in favors. And it's all relationship building and how you look at things and how you solve problems. And so right now I work for a startup. I've been with them for almost 2 years. And I was telling Andreas how I'm so excited to be with a business partner CEO who's been absolutely just the person I would want to work with, who has a great background, great understanding of people, how to manage people in the right way and not tell them what to do, and also to have values that have been instilled throughout the company.
It's beautiful, isn't it? I can relate to you because I'm also from the high-tech industry. I've been in software all my life.
Right.
And I have been with the ups and downs. I mean, I work with people who are in jail now. Sometimes, this goes way too far, and it sort of has to do. I think what you're identifying is the original why of a person. Of why are they doing this? If this is literally just to make as much money as you can, then often the rules are being bent, or you're trying to find just a way around the rules.
Sure.
But there are a lot of people who do have very good intentions and have integrity, like this person does that you found. And what's beautiful, I really hear how you're saying it challenges your belief in humanity and in God in some way when you see some of this cheating and lying and things going on. But at the same time, I've sort of found that then when you find people, it's like an oasis. And, the flowers are beautiful in the desert where there's nothing else around. And then you find individuals that are like this, and they are all the more beautiful. But you found more than this one person, I'm sure.
Right. And it seems like the workday goes very quickly. problem solving is not even a problem solving situation. It's more like, oh, you just look at the information and you just solve it in a very matter of fact way. There's no emotion. And if there is an issue that comes in, people seem to be more free to share ideas and don't run out of fear. It's more out of creativity and problem solving and a mutual goal, and also respect. Like we want, we all want, it's not even the money. Some people are working for less than what they would make, in a competitive market. They believe in it. They believe in the leadership. And I am very thankful I have been invited into that leadership team, which is great. And what I do affects everyone else. And what he does affects me and affects everyone else. And we're very cognizant of that, which is very unusual in a startup industry, because you're just so focused on Series A, Series B, or the exit.
So Mia, this is very interesting. I wonder if all of these has had an impact in your family. The fact that and so far you haven't said much about your family. We also want to know a little bit about that aspect of your life. What does an ideal working environment, what effect does that have in your family life?
Tremendous. So I'm married. I've been married almost 28 years, and we have two college-age sons, 21 and 24 years old. And they are a lot more calm because mommy is calm. And my husband is happy that I never complain about work. Whereas before I would come home and the kids were smaller, and a lot of my energy would come in where I'm stressed. I'm always questioning. I doubt myself. I doubt the industry I'm in. I doubt my team. I doubt the leadership. And I could tell that they're a little bit stressed and they don't offer up a lot of conversation. Where now they call me and they're like, hey, how's it going? Haven't heard from you in 2 days. I'm like, wow, my child actually called me first without me calling them first. So they're always checking up on me because they know I'm busy and they just love all the progress. I've become a person who shares versus before, when I was stressed out in a bad situation but got paid a lot of money. I would be more do this, do that. I've got to get through this and all that. And then once I start owning my own, I'm stressed doesn't mean everyone else has to be stressed. And I wasn't keeping it to myself, but I learned to manage it or check it at the door. I started sharing more with my family. And then now my son is in his senior year, and he is his major is entrepreneurship, and he wants to work in a startup. And I'm like, no, you can't work at a startup. It's really stressful. And he's like, but mom, you're doing so great. And I love what you do. And it's very sweet. But I tell him, there's a lot of challenges in a startup. It's great. You're given so much freedom, but at the same time, that kind of freedom could also be very dangerous if you're not mature enough.
Yeah, it's the challenge. I mean, what you're describing is exactly describing my life, my past experience of having totally gone all the way to only work, and the family suffers. And I think I've made every mistake in the book on this. And it looks like you also fell into that trap of like,
oh yes,
where life sort of was dominated by work. I find that this comes partially in my own analysis. It came from my perspective of siloing my faith and my work. And
yes.
What I mean with that is, it's not that I did unfaithful things or things that violated my faith necessarily at work, but what I did is, even just choosing my job and choosing my career, it wasn't integrated. So then who I work with was not informed. I didn't use faith as one of the litmus tests of where I want to work. Not like your boss may not be Catholic at all, or not even be religious, but may have this overlap of values with you, that you end up working with people where you can actually be yourself and not have to violate, in that sense, your principles. Is that how you experience this as well?
100%. In fact, I was at a company where I thought I was doing very well, and I got laid off, right? And the first thing someone blames is, oh, it's the company's not doing well. Sales aren't there, duplication of effort, duplication of, staff. personally, I thought it was God giving me a timeout.
Yeah.
And at first I resented it because it was such a good job. But then I loved being at home, loved being with my family. And really what you just said, it gave me the space to step away and go, you know what? There wasn't really anything great about that one place. It was just energy and money. And I flipped it around in my head where the energy is good. Now, how do I make that more positive? And how do I find people that I actually enjoyed? Because I really didn't like anyone. I just tolerated them, right? Because I'm from the generation, I'm an Xer, right? So it's like, keep your head down and just work and don't bother with anyone else. Right?
Exactly.
And so what I did was I started reading books like Trustful Surrender to Divine Providence. And I just realized you're supposed to be where you're supposed to be. I needed the timeout. I volunteered at a lot of places. I volunteered with the church. I even taught CCD at my son's school, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I was putting the popsicle sticks down and helping them make little crucifixes. And I absolutely loved it. Then all of a sudden I started getting all the phone calls, and I didn't want to go back to work. But there were two companies where it was just that calling. And that's where I really started interviewing the CEO, and I didn't care what his background was. I wanted to know him as a person so that I could say I could work with this person in the same office for 40 hours a week. And, I found a few, and it's good. And I feel like everything is a learning experience, but I believe that God has this plan for me to, what I do is I manage marketing teams, and it's very competitive in marketing. And it's not even my skills and my hard skills anymore. It's my how to nurture, how to coach the team, how to guide them, and how to trust, let them know that management trusts their skills, that they could do the best they possibly can. I just pull reports and report it to the board. And they're like, wow, you have a great team, and it gave you this information. And it's not like, Mia, can you go into the tool and run campaigns? They know I can't do that because I don't do it anymore. But I have brought team members in who have the great energy and given the creativity and the time to do what they do. And people are surprised that business is about relationships, and it's about nurturing and growing, growing their skill set and their trust. It's a lot of trust. And I've had people say, wow, I've never had someone trust me. I'm like, oh, you trust me. I will trust you until I can't trust you, or you give me a reason not to. And no one has ever given me that reason, because of just that they're supposed to be where they're supposed to be. And, let it fall where they may, and there's choices they have to make. And I love how when they make a mistake, they're like, I made a mistake. And I'm like, great, let's figure out where the root cause is, and we can take it from there. And they're like, you're not going to get angry. I go, why should I get angry? It's like, it's not solving anything.
Let me ask you, I wonder, it seems to me there are seasons in life, and it seems like you're at a very good space right now, in a very good space at work, and hopefully this is a long season for you, but these come and go, right? It seems like in the past, maybe it wasn't an ideal situation. What has all of these taught you? I mean, you're very much enjoying where you are. In the future, if things change, how can you, in spite of a culture that is not the ideal one, thrive at work? And obviously, when you come to a place where the culture really enhances your ability to thrive, you make the most of it. But how do you manage this when it's not always the ideal context?
Well, every day there's always a fire at work, and it's not the end of the world. And when people are in it, you could tell they're sweating. And I'm like, hey, how's it going? And they're like, I'm really nervous. I go, well, you know what? You're not alone. What can I do to help? Sit down, tell me. And I just let people tell me how they feel, what they think they've done. And it's just listening, right? And making them feel like they're not alone, and that there is a resolution. And in marketing, I'm not kidding. There is a fire every hour. I just can't believe, the printer didn't deliver, the product didn't come in on time. None of the campaigns are converting. And when you're so deep in it, like it's like I could see the panic in their face. And I know that it will all work out because it always seems to work out in marketing. But it also is the management of how you respond to a situation. And that's been something I have learned, because I was that person where if something happened, I would panic and it would be very external. Now it's I acknowledge and I respond and I say a little prayer like, okay, God, you're with me, right? I'm with you and you're with me. And it just seems to just naturally just happen when you say, sit down, relax, take a breath, and then you start seeing all the different possibilities. And even when board members are like, we're not happy with the numbers, I'm like, I understand. Here is where we are today. And here are the plans. They don't want the answers. They just want to know that you have a plan, that you've thought about it. And so I'm trying to teach people, and even my team and even myself, right? Because sometimes I get right into it, like sit back, relax, and don't let the negativity take over, right? Because I even tell people, like, I could tell when people haven't slept, even when they come to work. And I'm like, you haven't slept, huh? And they're like, how do you know? I go, I could see in your eyes, I can see in your body. And we all know that there's a reason why a certain being takes over, because they want you to panic. They want you to not be able to solve it. And I'm like, you know what? Let's get through the day. And then tonight, just rest and don't think about work. It's all going to be taken care of the next day. We're not curing cancer. And they come back the next day. They're like, oh my God, I had the best sleep of my life because I just had you tell me that you're with me. Yeah. And that's where I think in startups, especially because the groups are so lean, there's not a lot of people. You're wearing many different hats. And you know this, Andreas, you're like responsible for finance and operations and staffing and the strategy and vendors, and you just don't know where to start. And once you just take a step back and just realize, tackle it one at a time, tackle the easiest, like at least you feel like you've executed things, and just have faith that you can do it.
Seems to me that you're sort of applying the golden rule and Christian principles in how how you are person-centered. You recognize the dignity of everybody you work with, and in that sense, you're preaching without preaching. Like you're making people that you work with, they experience love, like genuine respect and genuine dignity. Does it ever happen that you end up having a discussion about spirituality or religion like that, or for people to say, where is this coming from? Why are you so positive?
Oh, absolutely. People ask me all the time, how am I so calm in the middle of a storm? And I tell them that I try to practice the law of detachment. You're not to favor, rich, wealth over poverty, and health over sickness, that it is what it is, right? And people have asked, like, you seem so spiritual. I go, I'm actually Catholic. I correct them right away. And they're like, oh, really? You don't seem Catholic. And I said, what do you mean? And they're like, oh, I don't know, you don't seem Catholic. And I go, I don't know if that's an insult or or something good. And they're like, no, that's cool. They're like, cool. They're like, my mom was Catholic. And I'm like, and you should be Catholic. They're like, yeah, I don't know. I just don't like all the regimented, stuff. And I'm like, well, you know what? What's an hour of your week? And also just giving glory to God and just being nice. And they're like, okay, and these are like millennials, and, and they're getting into the workforce, and they're good people. Yeah. And, I get a little sad, because if they had a little bit more of a background, they would be amazing, right? But they're so concerned about the external world, which is very normal when you're in your career at a very young age. You just want to make the money. You want to be seen. You want to be seen for the next promotion. You want to be considered. And, you know, when you've fallen as many times as I have, it's like, you know, I'm just going to fall. I'm just going to fail. You know, I'm just going to do the best I can. If I get somewhere, I get somewhere. And if not, maybe this isn't the route for me. And, you know, I just had to give it up. And whenever I gave it up and I was less stressed, everything I wanted came in very quickly, which, you know, and people say, oh, you're lucky, you've become an overnight star. And I quietly say, oh, if you knew how many times I've stumbled and how many times I've cried inside, or I've cried on my drive home, like, what am I doing? And then when I said, you know what, I give up, I'm not going to try as hard, then everything has come in.
Mia, let me ask you possibly one of our last questions as we're running out of time, but when you look at your whole career, and what we're trying to do through this series is really inspire other Catholic professionals on how to best be an ambassador of Christ, of the faith in the career world, right? What is one important lesson learned along the way as you have had, you have tried to give the best witness that you have possibly been able to give as a leader at work in your space? What is an important lesson learned?
Really having the confidence that you know what you're doing and you're doing the best that you can. And that's all you can do. Like, don't second guess yourself, you know.
You know, Mia, it looks to me like a lot, like you have a deep spirituality. Now, I don't know what your practical devotions are. I'd love to hear a bit about that, but also maybe to phrase this in another way, if you would recommend, like, is there a book that you use, or maybe the book that you most gift to other people that is a spiritual book that actually answered this question?
Oh yes, A Trustful Surrender to Divine Providence. I've read it 10 times because the first time I read it, I only understood one thing. The second time I read it, I understood another thing in another chapter. And it took me about 10 times to read it.
And that book is by Louis de Montfort, or is it?
Yes, it's that one.
Louis de Montfort, yeah.
It's that one. And I've given it to people in their darkest hour. People who feel like they don't know what to do, where they're going, why. I gave it to my best friend whose child died at 16. And, you know, he was 16 years old and she didn't understand. None of us understood. I've given it to my 2 sons. I've had my husband, who's a newly minted Catholic, meaning 6 years ago, he converted. And it's given him a better understanding. He was in law enforcement for a long time, and he's seen, you know, law enforcement or people in public service see a lot of the negativity of society. And so there was a point in his life where he didn't understand. And so I gave him the book and he had to read it twice. And I've given it to someone who is even the most faithful person, and they didn't even know about that book. And that book came to me by accident. It was sitting on a table, you know, at a church, you know, in the back, and I read it and I'm like, wow, I read like 3 pages. I'm like, I went and bought it. And also a priest once told me, Mia, at your most sad, remember this song by the Beatles. I'm like, oh no, let it be. And I have never forgotten that. And that's when I saw the book, like a day or 2 later. And literally it changed my life. And it's changed a lot of people's lives in terms of, like, I've gifted it to them. I've given like 10 or 20 of them away. And it's a hard read. And it's also, it makes you really think, like, oh, this bad thing that happened to me, it's not God punishing me. It's because there are certain things that lead up to it, and there's certain decisions I have to make after that. And it all just ends up working out. It's his plan.
It sounds to me like it was no accident that you found that book.
I do
Mia,
not believe in accidents. I do not
so
believe in coincidences, not anymore. When I think back at everything, there is a reason why I'm here in front of this computer talking to the two of you.
exactly. Mia Costa, thank you very much for being with us today. It was a pleasure
welcome.
talking to you. And everyone watching, thanks for joining us. We hope that you can comment and share this video for its maximum exposure.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Yes, thank you, Mia. This was super inspirational, and thank you all for watching. It's really a privilege to have your attention for a few moments out of your busy life here. We know that these are precious time and that you spend some time with us. We'll see you next week on Apostolicam Actu Ostatiatem, and thank you very much for helping us inspire the effective apostolic activity of the lay Catholic professionals in the world.